Now we're going to talk about some specific best practices with assessment design using Edulastic. So, whatever way you choose to pursue your common assessment, Edulastic is supportive in the way that it's very versatile, and yet it gives the educator the amount of, resources, agency, and guidance it takes to personalize an assessment for your students in your district. So in this demonstration, I'm going to show you a few easy ways to start your common assessment process and the theory behind that, as well as just some ways you can use Edulastic 2.0. I'm going to get my pencil going here. Okay. All right. Okay, so the process here, to begin with, I designed this common assessment, the baseline, by analyzing blueprint standards that were content specific on the Ohio State test, the OSTs. This is commonly called the AIR assessment. As you can see, this is the English Language Arts 1 and 2 blueprint. That's for grades 9 and 10. And the standards that I cut out of this little blueprint are in reading literary text and reading informational text. I am going to talk about how I used this blueprint to design the test, but also varied the levels of difficulty. So I have this blueprint linked in here if you want to see the whole thing. All right. Okay. So back to, the reading baseline assessment for career prep high schools, I designed that in a way that I was trying to challenge myself as an assessment creator, and I had a lot of content I was working with and finding new ways to write test questions in the different tech-enhanced forms that Edulastic has to offer. So, I made this assessment almost from scratch. There are, probably 4 or 5 items that I totally got out of the Edulastic certified bank, but the best part about Edulastic is all of the resources it does have to offer teachers and students and district level educators. So, here is the beginning of the reading diagnostic. You can see the standards over here, all right, we've got RL 910.1. We have some language standards. You can see that there is an eyeball. That's as a view as a student mode. So, this review feature right over here is awesome because it lets you go through each item and look at it from the student's perspective, as well as gives you the ability to add important standards and change the order and add different things to enhance the experience for the students. So, all right. You might be wondering, how can you design a common assessment for all learners? And I have 2 bullet points here. Common Core state standards on the test blueprint have been adapted to meet the needs of the assessment. Now, this is easier said than done, I guess. Well, I'll put this in a different way. English language arts, it lends to this practice because a lot of our standards are on a continuum of learning, and the rigor and depth of the experiences, it just, they are on a continuum, so it grows over time. It's not as specific as math or science may be. So for this test itself, though, I did take the blueprint standards and I, adapted them to different grade levels. And even when I wrote the assessment questions myself, I looked for the different areas where things would be including, something specific on a grade level standard. So this best practice allows students to be met where they are. Designing your assessments accessible and equitable to all learners increases achievement gap closing among subgroups. Okay, so here is question 6 from my reading assessment. And this is an A-B type question, a multi-part. I began writing this test with selecting an appropriate and relevant reading piece. It was an informational text piece. And I also used the AB type question because it comes up all the time on the AIR test. So I used this NewsHour article about Jay-Z, and I wrote a question where they're looking at content from the text itself. And there also is a part B where they have to align, a certain detail to the evidence cited in part A. And this is a common practice on the AIR test. I love making those types of questions, and they've really helped grow my kids over time. So some other best practices for assessments. This is a benchmark, but I also included multimedia, some voiceover videos I made using slides, and Notability. That's the program I'm using to make this. Another best practice in assessment writing is using pictures to enhance the experience for learners. So this is from the Metamorphosis. I love teaching that piece. We actually just finished it last semester at Central High School. And here, back to the Metamorphosis, but this is when I taught it to 8th graders. So you can take your old assessments and adapt them to new situations. As you can see, I have the audio, the vocab, and a video lesson, but I also have a benchmark test that's measuring certain standards. Right here we have RL 8, standard 1, and standard 4, and writing 8th grade standard 2. Okay, so writing informational text. You should embed videos into your assessments from things like TED Talks. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. This really engages learners. All right, so I am here at the district admin section of your Edulastic. This is when you have a site enterprise for your district, you will have designated admins, and they will actually disseminate the assessments and be able to control and manage it all through these settings. So these test settings are important, and you control those at a district level. Certain things like a password, shuffle questions. There are a few more than that, and we can talk about those later, that ensure security. So anyway, here is how you would assign from the admin side. I actually recommend to close manually just because a lot of things can happen. But here you can see this is a common assessment. So this can be assigned to students at different schools. The grade levels are different because the content is varied. All right. Here is a link to the reading baseline, but you can see the other tests we have going. I actually had to assign a few versions of, or not versions, but iterations of this when we were, piloting the process of getting these tests out. So anyway, the results have been, nice so far. We're using methods. We wrote goals based on this data with the standards-based reports that showed us how our students were doing in certain areas. And, we thought about, okay, what do we have and what can we offer these kids to grow them in reading and math and, close the achievement gap. So as you can see, Central High School right here, we are at 50% as a district. We're doing pretty well considering the fact that this was written for students. No one got above an 83% at Central. So, our goal is to be 56 proficient in reading by the mid-year assessment and 41% proficient in math by the mid-year assessment, which is in 3 weeks. So anyway, and that was taken from the insights. All right, some takeaways. You can ensure consistency with process through pulling from consistent pools of standards, and you vary the depth of knowledge. The number of items, I would keep them consistent on all of the common assessments. I have 30 on this test, And so that is what I'm going to use again. I'm going to use the same standards again with different items. Make sure you train your teachers. Get them excited about Edulastic. Get trainers in there. I'm a consultant that you can contact for training or just, help getting started and getting hooked up with the right people. But let's see. Foster meaningful conversation. There are Twitter chats twice a month. EdAssess chats, awesome. I really recommend attending those to talk more about assessment. But we really have been reliant on these for conversations in TBT meetings. And at my prior school, Millennium Community School, which is also a charter operation in Columbus, Ohio, that was what we used. We used the question analysis report at our TBTs to compare, different standards performance across grade levels in reading and math. So the third tip right here says utilize the common assessment settings. I showed you those above. And like I said, these notes will be available. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to continue the discussion about the data.